when I was 30, I went to Kenya with my wife to study lions. And this really changed my life completely. For 3 years, I was following the same family of lions every day. I was, in fact, the lions learned me photography. I knew nothing about photography. When you do a thesis every day, you write. My wife was writing, and I was photographing. And to recognize the lions, you count the point of the mustache. So you have 50 cards like that. That was one of my famous pictures. And to make my living there, I was flying the hot air balloon. So I discovered how important was hot air balloon to show the territory. And in '92, it was a big event in Rio. And I decided to do this big work, Earth from Above. So I decided for 10 years to photograph the planet and to show the impact of man. And first, it was the beauty of the planet, the beauty of our planet. I think we don't see nicely how beautiful is the world around us. This one was in Kenya, this picture of 30 years old. The trees in Kenya, Magadi Lake. Picture is not a good sign. It's okay. This in Syria. You understand how the revolution came in Syria when you see in Damas the satellite on the roof. From the air, you see so many things. You can explain the world very, very easily. Kilimanjaro, without ice. I remember when I was doing this picture some years ago, I was crying. Borneo, deforestation. Sand oil in Canada, pollutions. And I have to say that now, I was a little bit fed up to photograph ice melting, deforestation, impact of man. Nothing changed really. We have the conscious of that. This in Thailand, in a factory with the water went up. Sorry for my poor English. My pictures speak better than me. And it's about cotton in Africa, about the cotton in Africa made by hand is less expensive than cotton coming from America with all the subventions. So I was talking about all the problems of the planet. But I have to say that 5 years ago, I decided I was fed up to photograph ice melting, deforestation. I think really we have to speak and to understand the curse of human. We are still living like animals. We speak this morning about technology and everything, but when you look on the newspaper, what's happened in Syria now, what's happened in Libya, so why we are still like that? And we have the experience of the project we have done with all my team with named 6 billion Others. We were interview people for, we have done interview of 6,000 people on the planet for one hour each. So it was an amazing story. So we decided to make this movie human. I think to change, we need a spiritual revolution, something spiritual. We really need to feel inside, to understand our heart, to speak to the heart of people. That's why we launched the Human Project, to listen to the story, to become more human. I think we are not enough human. Me and my team, during 3 years, we went in 70 different countries and made more than 2,000 interviews. I do this film to share. I don't want to sell it. We're a little bit utopist. We want to invent a new way of broadcasting. At the really beginning, a French private non-profit foundation, the Bettencourt family, helped us to do this movie. Today, we would imagine a worldwide release with the 12th of September, we make a cinema in the assembly room in the UN. In this big room, we're going to show the movie. For this date, event and free screening worldwide, everywhere. A big event on the first public French TV on France 2, and hope to a lot of other TV. We also work with Google with a worldwide campaign in hours of testimony, because we have done 2,000 hours of testimony, but very few are in the movie. So in Google, we're going to show everything on YouTube and Google Play. But now we also need help to create event and broadcasting. We need your help to spread the message. This film is not mine, it's yours. And I think, frankly, it's too late to be pessimistic, really too late. My friend, I don't want to make a mistake on my English, so Nick, since the Stern review in 2006, that was a such shock for all the world, I remember very well. How do your ideas develop?
Thank you, Jan, and thank you for that wonderful introduction to an extraordinary movie. I've seen only 20 minutes, and it reduced me to tears. And there's a profound link between Home, which was describing what we were doing to the planet, our towns, how we lived, and Human, who we are and what we're doing to each other. And the link is as you just described it so well. And that feeds very much into what I have been doing over the last 9 years or so since the Stern Review was published. The ideas have changed in this way, Jan. I think the risks now are bigger than I saw them then. Why? Because emissions have been going up faster than we thought. Some of the consequences have been coming through more quickly than we thought. The Arctic ice.
Last week we passed the 400.
Yeah, 400 parts per million CO2. It's a measure of how fast the emissions have been growing. And some of the things that we leave out of these models that the scientists build, like the thawing of the permafrost and the release of methane, look increasingly more dangerous than we thought. And we have to be clear about the risks. David Attenborough spoke movingly about how very small changes undermining the coral. We are now at the limit of what our civilization since the last ice age has seen. We've been very stable. Andy drew those long graphs. When you take them back 7,000 or 8,000 years, we have been plus or minus 1 degree centigrade, and that's average global surface temperature measured relative to the end of the 19th century. We've been plus or minus 1 throughout that civilization, where we turned grass into wheat, and that allowed us to live in villages and then towns and have universities and filmmakers and so on. We're on the edge of that now. We could go, and probably would go if we didn't do much about it, to 3.5, 4 degrees centigrade in 100 years or so. And we have not seen 3 degrees centigrade for 3 million years. We've been around as Homo sapiens, drunk or otherwise, for 250,000. We haven't seen those kinds of increases for that length. 4 degrees we haven't seen for 10, 20, 30 million years. We're going to be completely uncharted territory. We don't know exactly what will happen, but the risks are immense. They rewrite the relationship between humans and the planet, where we can live, how we can live. Southern Europe may well be like the Sahara Desert, much of Bangladesh underwater, much of the Gulf of Mexico battered by hurricanes. You can describe and you can guess, but these are the scale of the risks, and they're bigger than I thought.
Do you think we are not fed up of this bad news of the time, with no reactions, really?
The good news, and I am a big optimist about what we can do. The question is what we will do, and that's about behavior, collaboration, policy, governance. But what we can do is enormously attractive. And you have to set it in the context of the way the world is changing. When I began lecturing on development economics 30 or 40 years ago, we used to talk about 75% of the world's income generated in the small group of people, now just 1 billion out of 7 billion, but smaller populations then, the small group of people in rich countries. That's now half-half. 20 or 30 years from now, it's going to be 2/3 away outside currently rich countries. An incredible transformation in our lifetime about where human activity takes place. Over the next 30, 35 years, by mid-century, we're going to move from 50% of population in towns, 3.5 billion people, and cities, to about 70%. And that will give us, because we'll be well over 9 billion in 2050, that'll give us 6.5 billion people. From 3.5 billion people in towns and cities to 6.5. From 50% of the world's population now in cities to 70%. That happened only once in the lifetime of humans. That's a very special change. That's the good news, because if we take advantage of those changes, because we'll have to invest anyway in our infrastructure, if we build cities that are not congested, that are not polluted, that are not wasteful, that are very attractive to get around, if we build cities like Barcelona rather than Atlanta, we will, as a world, create a much better environment. And we can do a lot on the existing cities, of course, we have. It's not just the new ones. So what a number of us have been working on, and we published this in a report, Better Growth, Better Climate, last September, and it's in my book, which is in the rooms of all of you, which is coming out United States next week, called Why Are We Waiting? Why Are We Waiting? If we make that infrastructure investment, if we transform our cities in the right way, make them much more attractive, we will have done most of what we have to do to cut emissions. Lots to do with forests, lots to do inland. But the really good news is that if we manage that profound change well, we could make this a much more attractive place to be and cut the emissions and reduce the risks of climate change.
But we have to do it quickly.
We have to start now.
Because we live in a deny, completely. Yeah. We don't want to believe that everybody knows exactly what's going to happen. We don't want to believe it. There's a big difference between to know and to believe.
One of the problems there is, I think the pure science deniers are fading away. I mean, if anybody has got new results with them in their pocket that can overturn 200 years of climate science going back to Fourier and very careful observation and 98% of the scientific literature, if they've got something in their pocket which disproves that, don't publish it in the Daily Mail. Take it to the great scientific journals, publish it right there. But the problem is this is about risk. We cannot forecast precisely. This is about big risk. But I've described risk on a scale that we haven't seen before. Andy put it very well when he quoted from his friend. We've got to protect the future from the past and indeed the present. We can actually see how to do that. I've tried to give a snippet. We've heard Eric Schmidt talk this morning about a big part of that story. Electric cars, driverless cars, run on electricity made without burning of hydrocarbons. It's an incredibly attractive story. We know how to do it, and we know we're going to learn like mad along the way. So the big question for me is, if you like, the link between home and human. That's the big question. Will we learn how to take those decisions as communities, as individuals, as firms, as governments, as international communities? Will we learn how to do it? Will we decide how to do it fast enough? Because time is running out on us. These next 2 or 3, you must excuse me, I hope the micro amplification is working well enough to offset the... But remember, Yehudi Menuhin, the quieter I talk, the more people concentrate. So I'm hoping that this applies in this case. But we haven't got any time. We have to decide now. Because how we design those cities, how we build that infrastructure in the next 20 or 30 years casts a shadow long into the future. I was born and brought up in London. Many of the roads in London were laid out by the Romans. And then we built much of the London tube system under the Roman roads. The Romans didn't know they were designing some of the London tube system. The shadow our decisions cast into the future over the next 20 or 30 years as we build the energy systems around the world in response to the rising standards of living which we celebrate and welcome. As we build those, as we build our cities, we will be taking those decisions. In order to describe a world where Eric Schmidt's electric cars, driverless cars work, you're going to have city regulations, layouts, legal systems, insurance systems that allow those things to change. Those come from our actions together as human beings. Now, the survival of the fittest saw us create new institutions and new forms of behavior, learning by experience. At the end of the Second World War, we'd had 2 great wars and a Great Depression, and you had to believe that cooperation was better than what we were doing, and we made big progress. We had the Declaration of Human Rights, the UN, we created the European Union, the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF and the World Bank, and we produced that period which, again, Andy showed, of collaborative advancement. We've got to do much better than that. We've got to learn, and learn very quickly, not to wait until it happens, because you can't turn the clock back. You can't make your peace treaty with a climate that's changed irrevocably. We've got to use our powers, which have come through evolution, to anticipate and collaborate, and that'll be the test.
Love is the key. Love. I don't know. I don't think we need some more love. We have to look at the planet and the people with less cynical and less skeptical on what we have inside. I'm very utopist about that and naive. I want to see the good side of humanity. The key is me. I don't have to wait for the political or to change. I have to change myself. That's all. It's enough.